Helena Ross, a reclusive author, is dying. She has 3 months to write her final work, a confession. But she can't do it alone. She turns to her fiercest rival, the one person she despises most, to help her tell the truth. But what is the truth? In a house stripped bare, where every corner whispers secrets, what is memory and what is a lie? What really happened on that fateful day? And why is the final confession more dangerous than death itself? To hear this shocking confession in its entirety, find the Ghostwriter on the Best Twists podcast, where I, Clyde, will tell you every last detail.
55. I lift my head, my eyes tired from reading, my hand aching from writing. Inside my chest, my heart hammers, and I am torn between the urge to walk away and the need to finish this. Can I go through this all in one sitting? Can I relive this horrible day all at one time? Part of me is afraid. The other half of me knows that this is the only way. I have fallen into the snake pit, and I can't rest, can't stop. I have to fight my way through all of the memories before the poison in them kills me. I flex my fingers, working the muscles in them, popping my knuckles and stretching back the phalanges, one at a time, until the blood flow returns. I get off the floor and move to Simon's desk, stretching to the right and then to the left, before settling down on his chair. Turning to a fresh page in the notebook, I return to hell. Mark. Call Charlotte Blanton. Find out if she's from North Virginia. He remembers the tight pinch of her features, the panic in her eyes. He thinks back, through all their chapters, and tries to connect this strange new name to their story. He opens a web browser and types in her name, adding in the New York Post and submitting the search. The screen goes blank. Then her profile appears. He clicks on the link, and within 30 seconds has a phone number and email address. Settling back in his seat, he pulls his cell phone from his breast pocket and opens the flip phone, one that makes his daughter roll her eyes and officially brands him as technologically inept. Pressing in the number, he lifts the phone to his ear. Charlotte Blanton, a crisp, efficient voice, yet still one dipped in youth. Charlotte, my name is Mark Fortune. That name probably doesn't mean anything to you, but I'm calling on behalf of a friend, Helena Ross. Silence, a long pause, clearing of a throat. Eyes? She had a rather odd question for you. She wanted to know if you are from North Virginia. Another long pause. May I speak to her? Mark glances in the direction of the room Helena had disappeared into. She's in the middle of something right now. I can't interrupt her. Huh. The woman sounds as if she doesn't believe him, as if he's intentionally keeping her away. She's a writer, he tries to explain. It's hard to... I know what she is. Her voice was so cold, so cruel, that he blinked. I know what she is? What? What was Helena? A writer. A writer... Was the woman referring to something else? Are you from Virginia? I'm from Tennessee, Mr. Fortune. She pauses. But my family lived in Wilmont, Virginia for 2 years when I was 10. That's what Mrs. Parks is referring to. Parks, her married name, though she didn't now use it. But something in the sneer of Charlotte's voice. There is a history between the two women. That much is suddenly clear. He backtracks, wanting to be out of this conversation, before he says or does the wrong thing, before he stumbles onto a bed of fire ants and causes an issue. I appreciate your time. Thank you. I'd like to speak to her. She speaks before he has a chance to end the connection. Can you make sure she calls me? I'm not sure anyone can make Helena do much of anything, he admits. Especially not me. At least ask her. It's very important that I get her side of things, before my article. An article. The threat flares his protective instincts, and he straightens in his seat. "An article," he says slowly. "About what?" "That's what I'd like to talk to her about. Please, ask her to call me." She ends the connection, and he slowly closes the phone, spinning the chair toward the door and thinking. 56. He is destroying the evidence, or hiding it. He could put it all in his car and drive anywhere, throw it in 100 dumpsters, or bury it in 50 different places. There's that land we own, 200 acres up in New York, the place he goes on hunting weekends. He could hide it there, or rent a storage unit, or burn it all. Once the evidence is gone, it will be my word against his. I stop pacing. The scenario's so bleak that it hurts, my stomach cramping, my breath catching. I push my fingers into my side and try to calm my breathing, slow my heartbeat, to think. No one will believe me. My own mother won't. And with the recent events, especially my visit to the divorce attorney, all of it will be suspect to the timing of my discovery. My discovery with no evidence. The discovery of a woman ill-fit to be a mother. If we get a divorce, I could lose her. If we stay together, I will kill him. I can't live with him. And he won't let me. He won't let his loose thread of a wife dangle. My knowledge is too dangerous. My will too strong. If he doesn't kill me today, tonight, this week, he will soon. A second possibility emerges. The idea that he will take Bethany and run. When I had considered this inside the house, his hand in my hair, I had thought, rather stupidly, that he would leave me at the house, unattended and free, while he took her. I had thought that the police would catch him before he got too far. But with me locked up, he can take his time. He can destroy evidence, pack bags, and visit the bank. His name is on every account. He could withdraw it all. There's easily 30, 40,000 in our checking account. 100 more in savings. He could pick Bethany up from my mother's and take off. Be in Canada in 6 hours. Disappear in 12. By the time I was found, if I was still alive, they could both be gone. I can't let him do that. Do either of those possibilities. I slowly turn, my feet moving over the bare concrete, and take in my prison. By the door, a phone jack. At one point, a cheap corded phone had hung from its stand. We'd borrowed it, put it in the upstairs guest bedroom, and never returned it. Useless. An electrical panel, one that controls the garage, utility room, water filtration, and irrigation systems. I could turn off power to the sprinklers. Same with the $5,000 water purification tank that Simon had insisted we needed. Take that, my pedophile of a husband. You think you're drinking filtered water. Think again. Useless. Our usher, a red LG behemoth with enough buttons to power a space station. Useless. Our dryer, the second part of a matching set. Simon had been talked into paying an extra $700 for the red color. I had gone out to the car and outlined my next scene. Useless. 2 hot water heaters side by side. Overkill for 2 adults, even with Simon's 30-minute showers. Useless. I turned further left, the mental task calming, my heartbeat slowing, the shake in my hands subsiding. If there is a solution in this room, I will find it. A skinny shelving unit, one that holds our laundry detergents, cleaning supplies, and iron. A toolbox sits on the bottom shelf, alongside a flashlight. The flashlight is long and heavy, the type that, if swung properly, could act as a club. I crouch and pull it out, the weight of it reassuring in my hand. Worst case scenario. At least I am somewhat armed. Before I stand, I look through the toolbox. Basic items, screwdriver, hammer, a wrench. I eye the hammer. Another possible weapon. I start to stand, then stop, thinking of something. The wrench. I turn back and look at it. It's not the big, heavy sort. This one is more delicate, the sort that fits into a small hand like mine. Its nimble pinchers designed for household screws and bolts. In a battle of strengths, it'd be as useless as a pillow. In a battle of wits, I bite at my bottom lip, an idea forming. The Terrace, it's a book of mine that no one has heard of. If I move 3 gigantic steps to the left, it will be there, among the stack of manuscripts. It is one of the 8 unpublishables. 8 novels no one will ever read. They range from uninteresting to terrible. One is about a talking cricket. One is about a menopausal woman who talks to herself for 400 pages. One is about a lonely teenager who reads on her terrace while her mother dies from carbon monoxide poisoning. The twist? She's responsible. Carbon monoxide was the 4th attempt on her mother's life, and the first successful one. Somehow, the book managed to be boring, while also, I purse my lips and attempt to remember the carefully worded rejection. Disturbing. Psychologically disturbing. Boring while also psychologically disturbing. I had agreed with the editor. It was boring and disturbing. If my mother had ever read it, she would have shipped me off to the closest mental health facility and locked me away forever. In the Terrace, the girl floods the home with carbon monoxide. Her tools of death were simple: a wrench and a hot water heater. I turned to the 2 80-gallon hot water heaters. I have everything I needed: 2 huge water heaters and a toolbox. I turn and look at the stacks of manuscripts, a meticulously researched instruction manual of death. And somewhere in those cabinets, I probably have the hot water heater's manual. Can I do it? Will I? I slide my hand around the wrench, then drop it back into the toolbox. I don't even know if Simon is still home. How long has it been since he locked me in? 10, 15 minutes. It is hard to tell. The seconds stretching before me, my manic mind either moving extremely fast or ridiculously slow. If he has already left, if he is already on the way to dispose of evidence or pick up Bethany, then I will accomplish nothing by turning the house into a poison-filled capsule. If anything, I'll only endanger my eventual rescue party, assuming one ever comes. I step away from the toolbox and lean against the door, my back sliding down the metal until my butt hits the floor. Lowering my head against my knees, I fight against the panic. Then, as if a gift from God, the hot water heater comes to life. I lift my head and stare at it, the machine humming, the sound of water flowing, and I hold my breath, wondering if my husband is simply washing his hands, or has turned on the shower. Part of me is shocked that, right now, you would think that a shower is appropriate. The other half of me understands it completely, especially if he is going to run away with her. Simon abhors the scent of the school on him, the smell of cafeteria and teenage sweat, and the exhaust from the bus pickup. His first step, once home from work, is typically the shower, and he takes his dear time in there. I once asked him what he did for 30 or 40 minutes, just standing there under the spray. He said he thought about things, that it was where he got his best ideas. I never understood what great ideas he was coming up with. Fantasy football projections, a more efficient way to stack his beer in the fridge. Now, with my newfound knowledge, my thoughts turn dark. His ideas, much more sinister in their possibilities. The water continues, and it's been 30 or 40 seconds now, definitely past the half motion that he considers hand washing. If he is in the shower, I have a guaranteed half hour where he will be at home. Add time for him to get dressed and pack up some items, probably more like an hour. He won't rush. Why would he? I am locked away, giving him all of the time in the world. I spring to my feet and turn to the shelving, to the stacks of manuscripts there, my mind almost spasming with my next decision. Stay here and wait, sit on my bony ass, and do nothing? Or flood the house with carbon monoxide and kill him? Kill him and the possibility that he will ever hurt another girl again. Kill him and ensure that Bethany's innocence will forever be protected. I closed my eyes and worked through the process, the time it would take for the carbon monoxide to fill the house. Simon growing sleepy, lying down on the bed. Death. When I don't show up to pick up Bethany, Mom will call. Grow worried. She will find Simon and call the police. She won't want Bethany to see the body. She'll take her into the backyard. The police will come. Search the house. I will be found. I will have to tell them the truth. There's no way they'll believe the hot water heater malfunctioned on its own. Not when I'd been locked inside the room with it. Will the police understand? Will they consider it an act of self-defense? Or will they arrest me for murder? Even if found innocent, I might lose custody of Bethany in the process. It's worth it. I would rather my mother have custody of her than him. I would rather risk my own incarceration than him ever touch her. Or another child. Am I too late? Has he already? I almost vomit at the thought. Surely she is too young. Surely his tastes aren't that twisted. I close my eyes and think of every child at his school. The neighborhood full of kids that have sprinted across our lawn and dove down our slip and slide. Every smiling face we've welcomed into our home on Halloween or Easter. When she is older, we would have hosted sleepovers and movie nights. I would have gone up to my office to write. I would have left them alone with a monster and never been the wiser. Imprisonment, losing custody, all risks I have to take. If I have the opportunity, right now, to stop him from getting to my daughter, or to any other child, I have to act. I move aside 5 manuscripts before I find the terrace. I rapidly flip through the pages, the first 80% of the book, detailing the girls' failed attempts. Skimming over the scenes, I realize exactly how screwed up my 16-year-old self was. Had I really hated my mother this much? Had I felt this detached? How many of these emotions had been fiction, and how much reality? I'd blamed my stiffness with my mother on her disapproval of my parenting, on her attempts to separate me from my child. But now, reading through my teenage thoughts, I am reminded of how different we have always been. In my upbringing, there had been no cuddly moments, no friendly lunches or the sharing of feelings. Any discussions had been examined through her psychiatrist magnifying glass. My emotions and motivations picked apart and analyzed to death. I learned early on to hide everything from her. The plot progresses and I slow my reading, bending the page over at the section where Helen, such an original name, did her research. The detail, as in all of my early novels, borders on excessive and insecure need to show my thorough research. And I remember the research well. The internet hadn't been as all-encompassing back then. I had had to hunt down a local plumber and get my information from him. He'd found me strange and had asked a lot of his own questions. What I planned to do with the information, if my parents were aware of my interest in killing someone via carbon monoxide. All of those suspicions had been overcome with a crisp $100 bill, and a promise to mention him in the book's acknowledgments. I hold my place with my finger and flip to the back, using a precious moment to verify that I had, in fact, acknowledged him. And sure enough, on the second to last page, on the book never published, there was his name. Spencer Wilton. I let out a sigh of relief. That debt paid. I returned to the meat of the document, skimming over the content quickly. Then a second time, my eyes darting occasionally to the tall metal tanks as I verify the facts. The good news is, water heaters haven't changed in the last 15 years. The bad news is, I'm about to kill Simon. I can do it. I can follow these instructions and pump our home full of deadly gas. In this airtight room, I will be protected. I could kill him and wait for rescue. I scoot forward on my butt toward the toolbox and pick up the wrench. I can do this. I will do this. I set down the manuscript and leaned forward toward the first hot water heater. 57. Charlotte. Charlotte opens the manila folder, pulling out the printout and sliding it gently across the polished wood table. It is a front page piece, 4 years old. In the photo, Janice Ross stares directly into the camera, despair radiating from the image. Above her picture, the title in big thick font. It was my fault. The woman's eyes are the only thing that moves. They dart to the page, to the photo, to Charlotte's face, then back to the page. A bit of tongue peeks from her lips, then disappears. That's an old article. Not that old, Charlotte replies. Do you still remember the day it happened? Her stare returns to Charlotte, and she shakes her head minutely, a scornful sigh wheezing through her clenched mouth. Of course I do. But like I told you before, I can't. I'm not asking about Helena or Simon. Charlotte digs a fingernail into the eraser of her pencil and wills her voice to soften. I'm just asking about you. About what happened that day. Why? You want to make me feel guilty. Her arms cross over her thin chest, and there is a sharpening of the features, a straightening of the back. Suddenly, she looks more like the woman of 3 weeks ago, the one who had stood in her office's doorway and politely refused every one of Charlotte's questions. Of course, those questions had all been about Simon and his behavior with Bethany. She had been barking up the wrong tree with a woman who had all but thrown the psychiatrist's code of ethics at her. I just want to understand the facts. She carefully sets the pencil down next to her notepad. Can you walk me through the day? There isn't much to tell. Janice Ross's eyes drop to the article and she picks it up, her fingers tracing over the edges of the page. I haven't thought about that day in a long time. I mean, she corrects herself. I haven't relived it in a long time. She glances up at Charlotte. Are you sure you want to hear it? Yes. She nods, and her fingers itch for the pencil, for the recorder that sits in her bag. But reaching for either right now might scare the woman away, might stop the story she seems so reluctant to tell. Please, maybe this will be the break that she needs. Maybe something in Janice's story will give her some closure. A long sigh tumbles out, the sort that carries more than just breath. Janice Ross wets her lips and then, her eyes returning to the photo, she speaks. Sometimes, as a parent, you just know when you are needed. That's how it was that day. I was driving home and something just told me to stop by Helena's. It was as clear as if God had pulled my steering wheel to the right. She lifts her shoulders in a small shrug, so I did. I swung by and came in. I made some excuse up about borrowing something. I can't remember what, but I was really just checking on things. And Helena, she stops herself, and there is a moment of inner conflict, some secret that she wars over. Helena was there, she finally continues. With Bethany. Was everything all right? Charlotte thinks of the police photos, the autopsy report, the diagram of the home, and the path that the gas had taken. Everything was fine. She gives a helpless laugh, her shoulders lifting. I felt crazy, leaving the house. Bethany was fine. Helena was relatively fine. Relatively fine. An odd choice of words. Charlotte mentally bookmarks the phrase. But you took Bethany with you. She risks a look at her notepad, where the timeline of events was summarized. What time was that? Yes, I took Bethany with me. She blinks, and her eyes glisten. Eh. She wipes at her eyes and a line of moisture smears across her cheek. I guess it was a little before 4. Charlotte waits for more. Bethany was such a happy child. She was in the back, in her car seat. I remember her talking about her day, about a frog that they had found in the backyard. She wanted to keep him, but Helena had told her no. She reaches out to the edge of the round table and pulls a napkin free from its holder. She swallows, and her voice is stronger when she continues. The traffic was terrible. and it took me 20 minutes just to get back to my part of town. We were passing the North Plaza when Bethany asked for ice cream. There was a fudge shop there, in the shopping center, and it had a few flavors. I had taken Bethany there before. I guess she looked out the window and saw the sign. She looks to the side, out the large dining room window, the light highlighting the tight lines of her throat. I shouldn't have stopped, but I did. I stopped, and I went around to her side of the car. I opened the door. Her face crumples, her hand trembling around the napkin. That was when I noticed her shoes. Her shoes? Charlotte leans forward. She had been barefoot when I picked her up. Still in her pajamas, despite the time of day. Janice straightens and carefully spreads the napkin, folding it in half and then dabbing at the wet underside of each eye. Helena had passed me her shoes before we left, but I hadn't looked at them. I hadn't realized. She pauses, her lips pressed together for a moment. I hadn't realized that they were mismatched. Both Converses. Bethany loved pink Converses. But they were both for the left foot. She spreads her hands. So I went back. She looks up at Charlotte with a hopeless expression of defeat. I went. She almost chokes on the words. Back. 58. I feel a misguided sense of accomplishment when finished. The hiss of gas rerouted from its safe route and into our home's air vents. It was almost alarming how simple it was. How innocent I could engineer the look of the damage. I sit back on my heels and sniff the air, unable to smell anything new. It is a futile act, given the odorless nature of carbon monoxide. Simon will never know the cause of his death. He won't even know he's dying. He will lie down and drift off to sleep. The end. It's too kind for him. Still, it's hard for me. My hands tremble when I tighten the final nut. At one point in the process, I cried. Even now, I can feel the swell of emotions pushing at the back of my throat. For all that is broken in him, he gave me my daughter. Even if he did threaten to take her away, he is still half of her whole. She has his eyes, his smirk. By doing this, I am killing her father. When she finds out, will she hate me for it? Will she forgive me for it? I slide back on the floor until my back hits the metal face of a file cabinet. Has the gas already reached the upstairs? How long will it take to fill the house? How long will it take to kill him? In my novel, it took 15 minutes to fill the 3-bedroom apartment. Our house is bigger, but so are these water heaters, both set on the maximum output. 15 minutes seems a reasonable estimate. I reach back and rub my head, my scalp still sore from Simon's grip. My gaze travels over the floor before me, the concrete dotted with my instruments. I carefully move to my feet, dipping down to grab the screwdriver, box cutters, and wrench. Evidence. I open the lid to the washing machine and uncap the bleach, pouring the solution over the items, snagging a paper towel from the shelf above the appliances and wiping down each item. I return them to the toolbox and shut the lid, pushing the paper towel down into the trash. It seems silly to destroy the evidence, yet feels cleansing, as if I am clearing the sin from my heart. I always thought I'd make a great criminal. I'm very clean, very organized, and, apparently, able to take decisive action. My fingers tremble when I pick up the manuscript, and I almost drop it. Maybe I'm not so stone cold. I carefully align the pages and reclip the gem clip onto the top, my hand resting on the cover page for a moment of reverence. It was one of my firsts, created on a cheap Dell desktop in the corner of my bedroom. Illegal music downloading in the background, the Napster logo blinking from my status bar. Marilyn Manson and 9 Inch Nails had dominated that year of my life. When I had finally finished it, I'd felt invincible. Now I feel anything but. I feel weak and foolish. I feel terrified. A reality where I kill my husband. What does that look like? A reality where my husband is a monster. How long had I ignored the signs? How many clues had I missed? I put the terrace back where I found it, deep in the stack. I turn and pick up the last piece of the puzzle, the manual for the hot water heater. I move to the far file cabinet and open the top drawer, flipping back through the files to find the right one. They are all perfectly labeled. White stickers with the title printed on them. Organized by category. 10 minutes ago, I'd skipped right to the file, my seamless organization proving its effectiveness. Now, with hours of waiting ahead, I take my time, calmed by the perfectly spaced words, the order in which this section of my life still is. This entire file cabinet is dedicated to household items, appliances, warranties, manuals, and replacement parts. I still have the wiring diagram from when our thermostat was installed. I have filter sizes and EPA reports and inspection records on our fire extinguishers. I open the file on smoke detectors, a moment of worry flaring. Had we purchased carbon monoxide detectors? Did our smoke alarms perform double duty? It only takes a few seconds, and the manuals are out, spread over the open drawer. Well, no carbon monoxide detection. If I'd been the one to purchase them, our butts would have been covered 9 ways to Sunday. Thank God I wasn't. I return everything to the folder and continue. I flip through 4 more labels, and then my heart stops. A sudden freeze of action. Every muscle stiffening as my gaze darts over the label again and again, again and again. Spare keys. I reach forward, and am almost afraid to breathe. 59. In the file is a complete duplicate of our key center, a plastic organizer of hooks that hangs on the inside of the coat closet. I've forgotten this version. Any need for a missing key satisfied by the handy version we see every other day. There are 2 white pages, each mounted on half of a manila folder to give the paper strength. 5 years ago, I found adhesive pockets online and put one beneath each label, the gold and silver keys shining out like rare coins. I run my hand across the grid, 9 keys on the page. There is one for our safe deposit box, another for Mother's house, for her office, Simon's school, and the exterior shed. I turn to the second page, forcing myself to read carefully, in case I miss it. There is a key to my desk drawer, the storage unit padlock, and my finger stops on the 2 most beautiful words in the world. Utility room. I carefully slide the key out, my palms damp, my fingers delicately holding the simple metal piece as if it might break. I can be free. I can run. I turn to the door and take a step forward, holding the key out like a dagger. Another step, and the metal kisses against the knob. I pinch my eyelids closed and say a quick, furtive prayer, one that begs for forgiveness from my sins and asks for one moment of grace. I open my eyes and push the key. It slides in easily. I turn the key to the right and almost cry when the lock clicks open. I stop. I haven't even considered the possibility of escape. Now, with this giant new possibility before me, I need to think. I need to be intelligent. I need a plan. Once out of the room, I will be in the garage. Opening the garage door will be too loud, and I need Simon to stay inside the house, oblivious to my escape. I close my eyes and try to remember the interior of the garage. There is a window, one above his workstation. I could crawl out of it and run to the closest house. Someone might be home, or there will be a car, someone I can flag down. I can use their phone and call the police. I stop that line of thinking. My home is a ticking death trap, one that if I am not home, I could be innocent of. I look at the hot water heaters, at the simple malfunction that I have caused. No one ever has to know that I engineered it. I could get out of the garage, get to Bethany, and come home in a few hours. Discover Simon's body then. I could hide the tapes and Bethany would never need to know of her father's crimes. I could avoid a trial and jail time. I could keep my daughter and move on with our lives. Hope surges through me, and I look around the room for anything I might need. I open the dryer and dig through the clothes. I pull out a pair of stretchy pants and a t-shirt, stripping out of my pajamas and stuffing the dirty items into the washer. My socks also come off, a clean pair snagged and put on. I work through the first step of the plan, getting to Bethany. It's over 2 miles to my mother's house, which is certainly in walking distance. I need shoes. Just outside of the utility room is a basket, a place to put muddy items before coming into the house. It will have something, anything better than bare feet. Before I open the door, I return the folder to its file and shut the cabinet. I run a disinfecting wipe over everything and survey the space, satisfied that any hint of my presence is gone. I glance back at the hot water heaters and give myself one last opportunity to stop everything, to go back and repair the heater. Could save Simon's life and then run. Maybe I'll get to Mom's before he does, but maybe I won't. Maybe I'll step out of this utility room and he'll be waiting. Maybe, once I get free and to the cops, all of the evidence will be gone and I'll be charged with attempted murder. The hot water quiets, the run of water stopping. Simon's shower is done. I leave my conscience behind and reach for the knob. The garage is dark, and I reach out, flipping off the utility room switch and halting its spill of light into the space. The dark settles, and I pause halfway through the doorway and listen. Nothing moves. I step out of the room and slide the door shut. I carefully work my way through the dark and find the mud basket, pushing aside a windbreaker jacket before finding the only other item: a pair of Simon's running shoes. The garage's window is obscured by a giant political sign, something that Simon agreed to put in our yard and never did. I carefully set it on the ground and push it beneath my car, the slide of cardboard against concrete too loud for my sensitive ears. I work the tennis shoe on my left foot, then pick up the right, not bothering with laces, my feet easily slipping into the size 11 Adidas. Gripping the edge of the counter, I heft myself up, my butt working its way onto the wooden surface. I swing my feet up and kneel, fumbling at the window's lock. I get it undone and grip the sill, struggling to get the window up, the open rectangle barely enough to fit through. It is enough. I push my feet through, then work my hips out, my body awkwardly bending back as I slide out of the window, my back scraping painfully against the metal sill. I land awkwardly, one tennis shoe stumbling over a rolled-up hose, and I hold out my hands in an ungraceful attempt to find my footing. There, I straighten and step toward the brick, hugging the side of the garage and staying out of sight. Looking up at the open window, I realize it's too high for me to close. It doesn't matter. I move forward, my back brushing against the brick, and round the side of the house. I consider the road, then discard it, my alibi dependent on no one seeing my guilty dash from the house. I turn and run, as quickly and as quietly as I can, into the woods behind our home. 60. I am not an athlete. Never have been. Now, I stagger through backyards and side roads, my arms as exhausted as my legs, the mere act of swinging them somehow tiring. When the first cramp comes, it feels like a knife and I stop, pressing a hand into the spot, my chest heaving, legs shaky with fatigue. I start again, and, at some point, realize I've gone the wrong way. My shortcut leading me into a gated community I can't get out of, and I attempt to scale a fence before I realize that I will have to backtrack, just to get around the brick fence. Bethany's the only thing that gets me through it. Soon, I will have her in my arms. Soon, everything will be okay. I jog when I can, and walk the rest of the time, moving as fast as I can manage, my feet flopping around in Simon's big shoes, a blister forming on the bridge of my foot. I practice the lines of my story, the tone of my voice, the look on my face when I see my mother. You're always telling me to exercise more. I decided to jog over. "Do you feel up to an early dinner? You could drop Bethany and me at the house afterward." She will ask questions, she always does. She will smile and agree, but there will be an edge of irritation. She will get on to me for forgetting my wallet and my cell. She will go into all of the things that could have happened, and how I just simply can't, be so absent-minded. Not when I am a mother and have Bethany to think of. She will rattle on and on about stupid possibilities, her voice growing more superior, more condescending, more frustrating. None of it will matter. I'll have Bethany back and be just days away from a new life, one far away from her judgments and admonishments. I inhale deeply and imagine the smell of Bethany, the soft skin of her cheek, the curl of her hair. I am almost there, just blocks away from never letting her out of my sight. Just ahead of me, Mom's house, the edge of her white picket fence. Maybe Bethany will be in the front yard. I force myself forward, the ache in my side flaring, and round the street corner, rising on my toes to see as much of Mother's house as possible. Yes, there is a light on in the kitchen, a glow of gold in the fall of dusk. I manage to jog, my feet dragging along the concrete, a squirrel darting across my path. A car approaches, and I wait for it, cutting across the road as soon as it rolls past. I let myself in the gate and climb the front steps, trying the door. It is locked, and I reach out, pressing on the doorbell. She has to be home. I try to calculate how much time has passed since she picked Bethany up. An hour and a half? 2. I press the bell again, more urgently, and listen to the faint buzz. Where could she be? I leave the front porch and move down her driveway and around to the back. If only I had my cell. Maybe they are at the park. Maybe she texted or called. Maybe they went to the library. Or for ice cream. Maybe. I should have grabbed the spare key to her house. Her back door is also locked, and I almost scream in frustration. Her garage is locked, and I can't tell if her car is in there. But she would not answer the doorbell. I slump into one of her front rockers and wait. 61. Charlotte. Her cell phone rings, a steady pulse of attention that Charlotte ignores. Something about this story will help. She can feel it in her bones. She waits for the older woman to collect herself. When I pulled into their driveway, Simon's car was there. She inhales as if she needs the air to continue. I was surprised but also pleased. Before I had stopped by Helena's, she pulls at the neck of her sweater. I had been planning on running some errands. I brought Bethany inside and spoke to Simon briefly. Her mouth tightens. 100 tiny lines in her skin come into life. He was fresh out of the shower and distracted, and I was. She lifts a hand and covers her face, too overcome to speak. I was thinking about my dry cleaning. I had told him that Helena had asked me to watch Bethany, but that she'd given me mismatched shoes. He told me to just leave Bethany there, that he could watch her. Her hand falls away from her mouth for a moment, and she lets out a brittle sob. So I did. I left them both there. She lifts her eyes and meets Charlotte's. I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself for that. The article says that Helena drove your car to the scene. Charlotte fights the urge to pull out the newspaper clipping and reconfirm the key. Facts. How did she end up with? I got my dry cleaning after I dropped off Bethany. Her face flushes, embarrassment tangling with the guilt. I didn't know Helena was at my house, waiting. She looks back down at the page, and there was traffic. And the cleaners couldn't find my shirt, this silk shirt that I was going to wear to a wedding. Her voice drops off and she swallows. When I got home, Helena was on the steps of the front porch. She looked so happy to see me. Her eyes searched Charlotte's for understanding. When she opened the car door and didn't see Bethany, She rests her knuckles against the bright coral color of her lips. I don't think I've ever seen that look on her face before. The way she looked at me as if I had committed a crime. As if returning a child to her home was criminal. Returning a child to Simon Park's home. Charlotte feels a stab of dread that doesn't even factor in the carbon monoxide. So? Helena asked to borrow your car. Oh no. Janice shakes her head sadly. There was no asking. 62. You did what? With each breath, the panic grows, the fire fanned, my psyche closer to the very thin edge of hysteria. I dropped her back off at the house, with Simon. My mother shifts the strap of her purse higher on her shoulder, and her keys glint at me from her hand. What's wrong? I can't see through the panic. I can't think through my fear. At some point, I step forward. Somehow, I have her keys. She is holding her hand, her face twisted in anger, her mouth moving, yelling, but I can't even hear her. I only hear my heartbeat, the dull thud, the crack of my steps against the gravel, the creak of leather seats as I shove myself into the driver's seat and shut the door. I drive. There's the blow of a horn, and a car swerves. The pedal won't go further, and my legs are stretched out too far. The seat way back, the mirrors on the car all wrong. Something clips against my bumper, and I grip the wheel tightly, holding it through the turn. All I can see is her face, her tiny hand lifting to those lips, the blowing of a distracted kiss. When I turn down my street, I see the ambulances, the police cars. I stop in the middle of it and get out, tripping over something in my haste. My palms skinning on the rough asphalt, the skin burning. I move, stumble. I shove at a body and my foot hits the curb, climbs up the driveway. I am stopped by arms around my waist, the black chest of a uniform bumping against me, strange hands on my shoulders, yelling, the whip of wind and hair across my face. I scream at them that this is my house, and they don't care. I tell them that my child is inside, and something on the man's face. I will never forget that look, the way that his face hardened and softened, all at once. I see that look, and I understand what it means. I love her, even when I left her. Even when I was happily riding in that psych ward or slamming dishes onto the floor in frustration. I loved her. I loved her. I need her. I need her. Need. I can't see through the tears. I can't hear her through my own screams. His chest won't break. I pound on it until my fists sag, until he lifts me against his chest and carries me to an ambulance. I beg him to see my daughter, but he says nothing. 63. Mark. After 6 hours of silence, she leaves the room and walks past the office door, heading to the other end of the hall. He looks up from his spot at the desk, watching her slowly trudge by, the notepad in hand, her head not turning to him. There's the quiet sound of the door closing, and he waits for a moment. Silence. He rises and goes to the room that she left, the door wide open, and he glances in, surprised to see a fully furnished space, a theater room that Maggie would fall in love with. Flipping off the light switch, he closes the door, a key still stuck in the lock. Returning to the office, he settles onto the couch, propping his feet on the end of it and folding his arms across his chest. Staring up at the ceiling, he wonders what she is doing. I'll write it, but I need you to leave me alone to do it. There is a fine line between leaving her alone and neglect. At some point, she'll need food, medicine, sleep. He glances at the clock and considers an interruption. Considers telling her about Charlotte Blanton and her mention of an article. He'll give her a few more hours, but then, if she is still awake, he'll bring her something to eat. He closes his eyes and relaxes against the leather cushion. 3 hours later, there is no response to his knock, and he quietly turns the knob and cracks open the door, tilting his head inside. The light from the hall first, illuminates a child's light switch beauty and the beast dancing around the edge. The walls are a pale pink, the carpet cream. He sees the edge of a dollhouse and instantly, soberly, understands. He carefully steps inside and stops, looking down at her. A nightlight plays gently over the scene, her body curled around the notebook, her hand possessively over the top of the page, words half filling the space. Her eyes are closed, her body slack, and he bends over to pick her up and then stops. In 2 months, it is the first time she has looked at peace. The lines in her forehead slack, her expression calm, her fists uncurled. His eyes move to the page, where a dozen lines repeat the same thing. I love you. 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 He ignores the other pages, a sea of them across the floor, underneath her elbow and head, pages upon pages of story. Instead, he grabs a blanket from the floor, stretching it over her body, then steps backwards, gently closing the door. Returning to the office, he stretches back out on the couch and closes his eyes. 64. A love story has a series of requirements, an equation for success. Love, loyalty, Abe J. Happily ever after. I've written and read enough in this life to understand that an equation for success rarely produces it, but that breaking the rules typically guarantees failure. I think marriage is the same way. Can you love a monster? I did. I loved him, and I hated him, both for the entirely wrong reasons. Did we have loyalty? No. I was more loyal to my books, to my words, to my characters than I was to him. He was more loyal to his secrets, his crimes, his perversions, than to me. Was there a happily ever after? I told you early on in this book the chances of that. I wake up on Bethany's floor, my neck sore, a page sticking to my palm when I lift it. I assemble the loose papers, turn to the last chapter, and write the book's final scene. I have written a lot of the ends in my lifetime. This one is both the hardest and the easiest I have ever written. I print the letters in a neat script, then slide the page off my lap, letting it flutter to the floor with the others. Done. My story, start to finish. I've spent the last 6 weeks thinking that I wouldn't be able to tell it. Wouldn't be able to walk back through that day, through those terrible moments. Now that I have, I feel lighter. As if I've physically stripped the moments from my heart and transferred them to the page. They say confession cleans the soul. I should have confessed a long time ago. I close my eyes and sit back against the wall, stretching out my legs and flexing my fingers. Now that I am finished, there is only one thing I want to do. I move slowly to my feet, my back protesting, my chest tight from the hours of constriction. I crack the wrists of each hand as I move quietly out to the hall. Passing the office, Mark snores coming quietly through the open door, and continue to my old bedroom. Going inside, I use the restroom, then stand at the sink, meeting my eyes in the reflection as I wash my hands. Am I ready? I turn off the water and lean forward, examining myself. I look like death. I feel even worse. At the moment, the only thing that doesn't hurt is my mind. I reach down and open the center drawer of the vanity, pulling out the only thing in there, a small white vial of liquid. 4 ounces of peace, 4 ounces of surrender. Am I ready? I pull it out and set it on the table.